Good afternoon, good morning. This is Mark Johnson from Loyalty 360. Wanted to welcome everyone to today's webinar. It's entitled Powering Through Loyalty Through Multi-Brand Partnerships and Unique Reward Opportunities. We have the pleasure of having Ali Isaac. She's a business value consultant from talon.one. She's going to walk us through the presentation. Just a few housekeeping notes before we get started. I want to remind you that this, as well as other Loyalty 360 webinars, are recorded and will be available on loyalty360.org after the webinar. If you have any questions during the session, please enter them into the question box, and we will do our best to cover them during the Q&A session at the end of the webinar. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ali. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark. Happy to be here. Hi, everyone. My name is Ali Isaac. I am a business value consultant with talon.one. And my role with the business is essentially to help brands personalize their loyalty strategies as well as their incentives. And so today I'm here to talk about multi-brand and partnership loyalty programs. And when I first got this topic, I was really trying to figure out how to approach this. And there's a lot of themes that come up with the conversations that I'm constantly having with the brands that we work with. And these are all things that you'll see throughout this presentation as far as differentiation, how to differentiate and stand out from all the different loyalty programs in the industry today, how to continue to engage and retain your customers through building trust and creating those personalized engagement experiences. And then also, how are you evolving? Is your program new? Is it relevant? How are you speaking to the segments and target audiences that you are hoping to convert into a transaction? So these are all things that we'll be talking about today. And as we think about multi-brand and partnership loyalty programs, there's two brands that I wanted to highlight today, Gap and Built. Gap is a family brand that has 4 different brands underneath it, but they have one loyalty program. This allows their customers to use their rewards and points across the entire ecosystem. And then we think of Built. They have a loyalty program that is built on brand partnerships that their customers find value in. And through these partnerships, they're really able to reach new audiences, enhance their visibility, and have shared promotional activities. Don't take my word for it, but take the customer and brand studies to showcase that these programs are favorable. Specifically looking at these stats, 90% of program members want flexibility to redeem loyalty points across multiple brands. So that brings in the cases of the Gaps, the Authentics, really great programs. Also, 80% of Americans are comfortable with their data being shared in exchange for preferred benefits. So it's really important for, if you do ask a customer for their input or their data, how are you going to be rewarding them on the other end? Also, 55% of customers worldwide use loyalty program rewards across multiple brands. That brings in partnerships as well as multi-brand loyalty programs. And then lastly, 57% of brands are most interested in updating their offerings to have brand-to-brand partnerships in their 2025 loyalty programs. So these are all really great studies from the customer standpoint as well as the brand. And I know, Mark, you guys have done studies as well and have seen a lot of these stats too.
Yeah, absolutely. When you look at the brand-to-brand partnerships, that is an area of significant interest for the members of Loyalty 360. We saw it at the Loyalty Expo earlier this year in Orlando, but there's challenges now, right? What used to be a 3 to 4 page document now is a 10-page document, 12-page document from a legal perspective. There's regulatory and compliance regulations with knowing your customer, understanding your customer. And also, there's technology challenges. Bank of America spoke about it during their session at the Loyalty Expo this year. How do you get this integrated? They have to not only get the technology, into the queue, but they also have to get the partnership in the queue and get it approved. So, and they also struggle, which was one of the things that, talon.one can help, is not only the technology, but some of the strategy to make sure that the program is mutually beneficial for all, both all the brands in the program, and that can be very challenging. We've heard from many brands who have a brand-to-brand partnership, and they kind of renege on the last minute, right? They go through, it's all signed off, and then one of the partners may not want to market it. Is there alignment between the brand's audiences? That could be a significant challenge as well. So these are, very relevant and prudent stats, but partnerships are very important, but brands have more barriers now than they had before in the past.
Perfect. And that's a great segue to talk about multi-brand loyalty programs for starters. And before I go into this, at talon.one, we have four golden C's as it relates to multi-brand loyalty programs: cohesion, consistency, control, and clustering. Essentially, you want cohesion across the customer experience. You want to have consistency within the interaction. So if, for instance, Gap has four different sub-brands underneath their umbrella, you want the interaction to be very consistent and essentially not change. You want it to be the same across every single brand so that the customer knows that they are working with that umbrella brand. By having control over the customer data, you're able to do more with it. You're able to personalize, you're able to target, you're really able to save a lot of margin as it relates to the data that you're able to have from those customers. And then having all the brands underneath one umbrella is a great way to showcase value. So as we look at Gap's in-app experience, it is completely seamless across all of their family brands. For starters, if you look at the images on the right-hand side, you'll see there's a Gap icon. And then through that, I can navigate to every single one of their brands very easily. That way, I can then have the same experience through shopping at Old Navy, Banana Republic, and Athleta. The loyalty points show up in the same way. Their offers are on the same page as well. And that way, it's the same experience across every single website or in-app experience that you're having as a customer. But I wanted to call out a couple of things as it relates to Gap and how they're doing this really successfully. So by having a share of wallet, they are keeping all of their customers, whether they're coming from a value standpoint or a premium standpoint. Those customers are able to earn 1 point for every dollar across every single brand, and then they're able to redeem that currency for different discounts or points as it relates to their spend. Also, they're able to reach a lot more customers through cross-selling and upselling. Like I said, they have value brands, they also have premium brands. And so being able to cross-message and do things with a lot of synergies really expands that brand reach. They're able to educate their customers on different brands if they didn't know that they have other brands within the family. But then they're also able to fulfill those shopping behaviors that customers may be coming for one brand, if not all four. So not only are they able to get their clothing for themselves, they can also satisfy their sister, their brother, their entire family, or someone within their community by having four brands underneath one roof. And then lastly, as it relates to the customer lifecycle, Gap as an umbrella brand can really save a lot from acquisition costs to engagement campaigns, as well as different upgrades as it relates to the overall lifecycle and experience for those customers. I wanted to call out here to showcase the different ways that customers can earn with Gap's loyalty program. And there's four different ways. Like I mentioned before, customers can earn 1 point for every dollar that they spend, as well as they have certain benefits for their credit card members. They have benefits specifically if you shop at Gap. And then there's also benefits if you shop exclusively at Old Navy. So not only do they have it across the board, they have it on a brand basis as well. This is really helpful too, especially if you're trying to move your customers to a specific brand or push inventory from one brand. And so these are really great tactics to keep in mind, but also keeping it flexible if your customer wants more than one option and they do shop at more than one brand within that family. I'm going to move on to partnership loyalty programs. And at talon.one, we oftentimes get a lot of questions on how do you determine the right partnership for your members? And there's three different things that I want to advise you all on today. So first, understanding your members. A lot of our customers today, they use gamification and social listening in order to understand what their customers value. So through this, they're able to collect their data, give them value in return. And then through that, they're able to understand what partnerships and what they value, how they see the world, what's important to them, what cases do they, what causes do they really care about. And then through that, you can have partnerships not only from one campaign, but you could also have it for a year long or whatever that cadence may be, whatever it makes sense. Sometimes seasonal campaigns are better specifically from a partnership standpoint. Sometimes it's just we want to add a partner to this campaign. Other times they have it for an entire year. So it all ranges depending on what your customers find value in. Also, another great reason to have partnerships for your members is specifically to have mutual audiences and acquire new customers. So when you acquire new customers, you can then convert them because they're already shopping at that particular brand or buying those specific items. So creating mutual benefits and synergies is really important, and having those mutual audiences is a way to do that. And then lastly, thinking about the return on investment. In order to have this partnership, you're thinking of the partnership as part of the acquisition and retention costs that you have in order to keep those customers that you're initially acquiring. And so if you're not getting the conversions that you're looking for, understand why. What other things do you need to be doing in order to have this be the right partnership? Maybe you need to shorten the duration of the partnership. Maybe you need to do a completely different partnership. But just because there's not the right conversion doesn't mean that it was a fail. You now understand the value that your customers are looking for if it isn't the right conversion. But hopefully you've done enough research from understanding your members through gamification and social listening that you can then have that correct return on investment that your leadership and you are looking for. Mark, I know you guys have had a lot of experience with partnerships as well, with the brands that you guys work with. So I would love to hear any thoughts you have here.
Yeah, partnerships are, as mentioned, a pretty significant area of interest. Brands want more tailored partnerships, as you mentioned, right? They don't want 100 affiliate partners that they may have had in the past. Even in travel, the hotels, the airlines, they're streamlining their partnerships to have a more synergistic approach with the partners. But as you mentioned earlier, that takes more time to knowing your customer, understanding if the partner, and also knowing the respective customers in the different programs. And are they going to find value on that, right? And there's also a challenge too. You can do a quick partnership where you exchange points, you exchange value, gift cards as an example. But depending on the industry and the regulatory concerns, it can be very onerous to get a partnership through. Casinos, fuel, banks, entertainment entities, they're heavily regulated, so they may not be able to do a test, right? They may not be able to do an exchange of points. So that means you have to go complete integration, point of sale, making sure you have marketing alignment. So that gets to be kind of a more challenging sell in. But also, as you mentioned, that ROI becomes very difficult to estimate. And how effectively you can estimate that ROI and sell that in is a big challenge. And being able to leverage entities that have experience running partnerships is something that brands are looking for as well.
Perfect. And when we get into our example about Built, they do a really great job of engaging and retaining the customers that they have. Within the first 6 months of them working with talon.one, they were able to double their loyalty members. This is something that I think is really, really impactful and really important. And they had the right strategy in place in order to double those loyalty members. They did the right research, they determined what was valuable to their customers, and then they were able to put in specific strategies in order to retain them. So as we think of the campaigns that Built has essentially launched for their customers, they use gamification and bonus point activations to inspire that customer spend. So if you look at the first photo on the right-hand side for Christopher Edwards, he can earn 5 points through using the Built credit card if he swipes his card during the month of January. All of this to then essentially change his behavior to then have every single transaction after that be using the Built credit card. So not only did he gain his 5x points based on the spend for that month, but he now is creating a change of behavior by locking his credit card to that gym membership. And so not only did Built get one transaction from it, they may get 12 for that given year. So that's just one example that I think they do a really great job of. Also, in order to receive and use those points that Christopher just earned, he has to make a minimum of 5 transactions in that given month in order to redeem and use those points that he just earned. So doing this not only has him have one transaction, but he has to have 5 throughout the entire month in order to redeem his points for any sort of fitness, dining, rideshare, travel, different benefits that Built offers their members. And then lastly, having this partnership ecosystem really allows them to share the cost with their partners as it relates to adding benefit to their customers. So within their strategies, their brands offer add-ons from their partners. And so through that, they're able to then be able to earn, redeem, and spend and get even more points with that shared cost. A couple takeaways that I want to showcase before we wrap up is all of these relate to multi-brand and partnership loyalty programs. And through having these programs with the partnerships, you can really build brand awareness. I mentioned before that if you do have a family of brands underneath one loyalty program and a customer may only shop at one of those brands, you're educating your customer to then know that they have other options to shop at underneath that same family. You can cross-sell, they can try a brand with less risk, and then you can complement their purchases based on different categories that they may be shopping at. Through all of this, you really want to be able to build brand trust and have repeat purchases, referrals, and brand advocacy. Within all of this, you're building brand commitment. So you're building trust, you're reducing the risk of them switching to a competitor, and you're building that long-term relationship. And then lastly, from an attitudinal loyalty perspective, even if there are competitors that are having a better deal, because you've gained their trust and because you're continuing to show value to them, they're then going to choose you, even if it's more expensive, even if it's a different option for them. But because of the trust that you've enabled with them and the value that you're providing, it really will create a rewarding experience for them. And then one last thing that I wanted to showcase, talon.one recently came out with our loyalty strategies for 2025 ebook. This has great examples from partnerships, from multi-brands, subscriptions, a lot of different tactics that some of the top programs that we believe are doing really well in this space. So we will provide the link as well as have an email for you afterwards, but make sure you read this. It'll give you a lot of really great insight on where your program should go for 2025 based on the examples that they have today, because they are constantly evolving, they're consistent, and then they're also having a really wonderful experience that allows customers to want to have repurchases and come back and continue to convert. So with that, we will take some questions if anyone has any.
We have a couple questions. So you mentioned gamification as a method to better understand your customer preferences for partnerships. Can you share a client example or a couple client examples of what that may look like?
Yeah, absolutely. One of our favorite programs at talon.one is the Sephora program. And through this, they run challenges with talon.one, specifically to understand their customers' data and how they can use it better to personalize their experience. And one example that I love is they offered a challenge that rewarded a customer with 100 points in order to have a shade match. Once they understood what shade their makeup was, the customer then received 100 points. From that, Sephora was then able to personalize the experience, offer specific free trials of these samples that their brands that they're already selling could then sponsor, as well as offer double points or triple points or whatever the point allocation may be. And they were sharing the cost with the brands that they were trying to sell. So all of this was really great from Sephora, and they're constantly evolving their challenges and coming up with new ones in order to gain more data, and then essentially create more value for their customer at the end of the day.
Okay, excellent. We have a question as well. It said it talks about Gap and their in-app seamless multi-brand experience. Do they have one centralized cross Gap brand loyalty strategy and app technology team, or separate ones, or is that something that you know? How are they creating such a seamless customer experience?
Yes, so that's a great question. As far as the seamless app experience, you can download any of their brands um, from like an individual app, but then you can also um, cross-reference each of those apps within one. So if I were to download Gap, I can then go visit Athleta via the Gap app as well, if that's the question that you're asking. Um, but as far as how the teams are set up, I don't have knowledge of that. They're not a customer of ours. Um, but I do know that um, I do believe that their marketing teams are separated, but they may have teams
Yes,
together that are trying to be cohesive and have the same strategy going forward.
absolutely. Yeah. So when you look at B2B partnerships, are there examples of B2B partnerships that are working very well?
Yes. One of our customers is a landscaping business, and they have a lot of different partnerships as it relates to helping their customers grow their business. Specifically, as it relates to growing their business, they have discounts with Verizon and Office Depot, as well as they'll do, in order to push specific brands at their company, their suppliers and brands will actually sponsor these benefits, these point allocations, in order to share that cost to really push their brand. And then lastly, they have a marketing agency that they offer in order to have different activations and really help their customers within their specific regions.
Okay. Excellent. And one question I had, we talked about some of the challenges that we see from a brand perspective, right? There's more oversight, legal, regulatory. How should brands approach that? Should they be looking for more of a short-term gift card exchange potentially, or a co-marketing opportunity? Well, what do you think that brands should be looking at, or does it depend on industry and level of sophistication within the organization?
I think it really depends on what their customers find value in. At the end of the day, if your customer doesn't find value in what you're offering them, all the regulatory, all of the way that things are set up doesn't matter at all. But if your customer isn't making a conversion based on what they find value in, they're not going to use that partnership. So, based on what we were showcasing before, it's really important to understand your customers up front. That way, you are providing value to them, and that way they are making that conversion at the end of the day. So, I wouldn't say it's industry specific at all. I would say it's really dependent on knowing your customers and what they value.
Okay, excellent. Well, I think this is great. Quick question. If you were to give one piece of advice for a brand or a series of brands who may be considering doing a partnership or even pulling together their multi-brand programs, because we see that a lot. We have members of Loyalty 360 who have disparate programs that are not integrated, right? We have hotels that may have a high-end hotel brand and their traditional brands, and they may not be in. They want to work towards that. Is there one or two things that they should consider with regard to kind of building or coalescing the brands?
Yeah, I think one thing that comes to mind is thinking about the behavior that you want to inspire your customers to do. And if it makes sense for you to join those programs together, whether it's offering 10 points for your most expensive hotel or 1 point for your value hotel, if that's going to change and inspire behavior, then maybe it is worth pulling them together. But I would say at the end of the day, if your customers don't find value in that, then it may not be worth the margin. It may not be worth um, all of the tactics and time and effort that go into that. But I think starting based on the expectations that you want to set forth and the behavior that you want your customers to have really comes down to how customers see the world and what they expect. And so, based on that, um, really taking that into consideration, but always putting the customer first, always thinking of your staff, Um, I always say whenever someone launches a loyalty program, if you can't describe it within a couple sentences, it's too complicated. And so keeping your loyalty program simple and understandable and very transparent on how to achieve success or achieve those rewards is really important.
Okay, excellent. Well, Ali, thank you very much for the great webinar today. Very interesting, your approach and what you're seeing with regard to partnerships and how brands can effectively leverage multi-brand strategies. Uh, if anyone has any questions, please reach out to Harley and myself, and we'll get you in touch with Ali and her team. I know there'll be a follow-up email with a link to the webinar as well as the link to their trends report. So again, thank you everyone for attending today, and looking forward to having you back on another webinar soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much.